Nothing like good music from the good old days to get the blood flowing. It's really quite beautiful. And as we come to this, our last beatitude, I hope your lives have been enriched by this wonderful journey. I have been so inspired by the Beatitudes, and I hope you are too. I am just captivated by the amazing ability of our master teacher, Jesus. What a teacher to bring such wisdom in the Sermon on the Mount. I really do believe it is foundational Christian theology. And as we've explored these Beatitudes, they've enriched our spiritual journey to see how we can navigate in life. Today's talk, the Beatitudes, choosing heaven. And we want to start, as we have been on this series, by looking at the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Here, it's Matthew 5:10-12. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is such a blessing, because as people of unity, we know the truth. We're one with God. And in that oneness, God is always available to restore us, to heal us, to guide us. And yet, that doesn't mean stuff isn't going to happen. That doesn't mean life is going to give up and serve a nice platter of disappointment or discouragement or persecution, judgment, criticism. And as human beings, we may be the one pointing the finger. Oh, them. Or we might be the person, aligned in our truth, that's being persecuted. We don't occupy much of our conversation in unity with evil and false thought. We just know all evil is just error thought. And as human beings, we will and do error thought. Susan's gathering prayer today explained that dualism. We have faith and we have fear. We have all kinds of conflicting ideas and beliefs. But the truth is, we can choose heaven. And that's our place of aligning with our Christ consciousness with God. So, I had the great honor of studying with Neil Douglas Klotz when I got my master's in spirituality at Holy Names University. And his scholarship in Aramaic is profound. And here he says, in the Aramaic, the end of the Beatitudes strikes bittersweet. It acknowledged that a certain amount of discouragement is natural and can be a reminder to turn within and renew before proceeding into co-creation of heaven on and in earth. This is what we believe. Now, Neo leans towards the Hindu. He's not a unity, but truth is truth. And we know that when we drink in and we breathe in and come to this place of knowing of the truth, then it doesn't matter what's happening outside us, yes? Now, when I was thinking about this talk, what came to mind was the Dalai Lama. So when you think of the Dalai Lama, and just think about this man, what virtues, what comes up when you think about him? Love, compassion, peace, wisdom. Yes? He's human. He's a human being, but he exudes these values. Now, I don't know a single person on earth who's experienced the type of trauma that he has in his life. The Chinese government decided that Tibet is their land, and he's been banished from his home. And some of us human beings, when we experience that kind of opposition, drop into the well of, oh, poor me. Ain't it bad? They've been so bad to me. But this beatitude is waking us up to life happens. And how are we going to respond to the opposition, to the persecution, to the disappointment? And it's choosing heaven. The Dalai Lama didn't just get there. He chose heaven. And then he is a loudspeaker to all peoples on the planet. Hey, choose compassion. Choose love. Choose peace. Sounds a little bit like our wonderful master teacher Jesus, who here in Unity, we look to Jesus to be an example of how we can live our lives, yes? And these Beatitudes are wonderful signposts, a recipe, operating instructions of how to live life rightly. I love that. And this is choosing heaven. Now, I turn to the wisdom of Emmett Fox, the author of the Sermon on the Mount. From that, he says, we have to understand that the source of all of this persecution is none other than our own selves. No outside persecutor, but only our own lower selves. Again, we know this from Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, Brene Brown, the Dalai Lama, the great writers in New Thought, and even contemporary teachers are saying no one and nothing outside of us has any effect on us unless we let it, unless we choose to accept their thought. And isn't that giving our power away? Isn't that saying, okay, my truth isn't important, but I'll just hook onto yours? But that doesn't lead us to health and wholeness. Now, on August 26, 1998, when Owen was run over inside a mini-mart by a sport utility vehicle, most of you have heard about that before, the moment I saw Owen on the floor inside the mini-mart, broken, the first thought that came to me was the deep knowing that he would be strong, healthy, and whole. And I held that vision every single day through the 8 years of surgeries and disability that Owen went through. And lo and behold, Humpty Dumpty was put back together again, and Owen doesn't have any chronic pain, and he can walk 3 miles a day, and he is strong, healthy, and whole. Now, there's power in that, holding that truth. But the greatest gift that was for me was not to be shattered. Owen's body was shattered, but mine wasn't. I was able to hold a higher truth as long as it needed to be held. That gave him strength and gave me strength. We can hold the truth no matter what the experts say. Now, when the accident happened, there were 5 doctors in the hospital that said he was going to die. That didn't shake my knowing of truth. In your own lives, when have you held on to the truth? Or when have you dropped your truth and allowed discontent or resentment or hatred or bile to be your experience? And as soon as you were done in the mud, you got yourself out and you went inside and you started identifying with the truth that's always true. That's choosing heaven. That's living our truth. And we're human. There's going to be times where we are going to be the persecutor. We're going to say stuff that's going to be strong, and you're doing it wrong. And there's people, when we're holding the truth, who are going to say that to us. Ever experienced? Ever done it? Of course we have. We're human. Elizabeth Turner, a great unity writer, says, those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake are the ones who have spiritual ideas yet encounter within themselves states of consciousness that oppose their ideals. These adverse states of consciousness belong to race thought, much of which is still in each of us. Okay. Consciousness 101. We have the consciousness of me, myself, and I. We have our subconscious, the record of all that we have seen and done. We have our superconsciousness, our consciousness with the divine. And at the same time, we have race consciousness. That's within the human realm, our species, there's a consciousness of the whole species. And this is why human advancement, human change doesn't happen very fast, because it takes a lot to move the whole mass of humanity. Here, we are in the middle of, sadly, in the middle of a global pandemic. It's affected every single person on the planet. Now, there are very few things we can say an event that affected every single person on the planet. And with that, we are in a consciousness giving us an opportunity to possibly choose differently. Which brings us to this final quote for this talk, again from Neil Douglas Klotz. It says, "Consider adversity as an incitement to take another step." Seems to be the message from this beatitude. What if, whenever we perceive adversity, whether it's from race consciousness, a thought that just comes into us, it says, race consciousness can be anything. Or someone criticizes you, or your boss comes down, or your partner is very disappointed in you. It happens. It's going to happen. It's life. Life isn't always easy. But if we can allow any adversity, anything that comes to us that we go, oh, I'm choosing heaven. We can choose heaven each time. We can choose peace. We can choose unconditional love. We can choose acceptance. We can choose God. We can choose Christ consciousness. Are we always going to get it right? Probably not. But the path to our enlightenment, to our wholeness, to a place where we can address everyone in peace. Because then I'm living from my oneness with God, seeing the oneness in God in you. And then we begin to relate to each other from that place. It really is quite simple, but it's not so easy. But it takes a choice. And it's a choice that we may have to choose every day. And so I invite you to choose heaven, to choose Christ consciousness, to choose God, and live a divine life, co-creating with God, bringing heaven in us and in the world. Thank you.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.